Mitro Namaskar. I welcome you all to this session of academic listening, which is under the aegis of SHIKSHARTH, under Indian Institute of Teacher Education, Gandhinagar. Friends, as we all know, communication skills comprises of 4 basic skills: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Today, I would be focusing on one of the most important passive skill among the 4 skills, that is listening, with special attention on academic listening. My name is Dr. Vishal Pandya, and we shall start this session. Friends, listening is a very important skill. Without good listening, none of the other skills become comprehensibly possible. As you can see it on your screen, we are given 2 ears but only 1 mouth. This is because God knew that listening was twice as hard as talking. We always fail to listen, we only hear things, because we are always preoccupied by our own thoughts. We are preoccupied by the answers that we need to give to the person who is already speaking on any particular topic. That is why listening becomes such an important yet neglected skill. When we start acquiring any language, say for instance your mother tongue, that is Gujarati, first of all, you went through the process of listening, after which you went to speaking, then reading, and then writing. So it is the first and the foremost skill to be acquired in order to comprehend any particular language. The problem that we face as people who are trying to learn, into inverted comma, English language, is that we often tend to start learning that language not by listening, but by writing skills, which is the last amongst the 4 skills that we need to learn. If the process is as similar to the process of us knowing our mother tongue, then I'm sure second language acquisition can become a reality. Moving forward to the next topic. Here, people need to practice and acquire skills to be good listeners. It is not easy to listen, okay? Because as I told you earlier also, we are in our web of thoughts. We always are in our world, which is our very own, thinking about many other things than the topic. And when it comes to specialized listening, that is academic listening, it is even more difficult. It is not like throwing a dart. It is not that easy. Okay, we tend to think that, okay, listening is not such a difficult task to be done. It is because that is not what you are doing. When you think you are listening, you are actually only hearing. And hearing is totally different from listening, and even more different from the very concept of academic listening. Information, as we all know, is an intangible substance that must be sent by the speaker and received by the active listener. Not only listener, please look into this word, active listener. You'll have to be equally involved. In fact, I must say, you have to be more involved as a listener, because you have to be active when you are looking into the eyes of the speaker. You should be able to understand what the speaker is exactly trying to tell you and then answer accordingly. Moving further, here you have the steps of academic listening. One of the major problems in communication process is that we don't listen actively. We always focus on inactive listening, or our listening is always inactive. Okay, every individual has to be totally involved when listening. We have to be seriously into that very process of listening. Very often when we try to listen to people who are speaking, we don't actually listen. We most of the times only hear. And hearing is extremely passive. Even otherwise, listening is a passive thing. And when you come to listening per se, that to academic, it becomes highly active. So hearing should be deleted and listening should be allowed to get into your system, and then you get involved into the very process of what the speaker is trying to say. Moving further, we can say that listening will only take place when you totally concentrate. Now, when I talk about the very word academic, that means that you have to be extra cautious of what you are getting into, because you will be taking your exams on the basis of what you have comprehended by the sessions or the lectures that are taken by the resource persons or your teachers or the professors that you listen to regularly. So that has to be very precise and very content oriented, okay? Because when a speaker of high caliber is talking to you, we should make sure that we are totally into and totally involved in the very process of listening. Moving further, academic listening is, I'll give you an example now. A poor listener, for example, can destroy the speaker's desire to talk or his or her confidence in his ability to communicate. You must be facing the same issue sometimes. What happens is, when you are sitting in front of an audience, and then you are about to speak in front of an audience, okay? And if a listener is not at all interested, is not involved, does not know your language, there are many barriers to listening also, then your confidence goes down. You don't seem to enjoy what you do. So a speaker or any speaker requires excellent listeners. Moving further, effective listening is actively absorbing the information given by speaker. You have to absorb everything, okay? You should be like a sponge, absorbing everything that comes to you and then comprehend it and write it down in the way in which it should be written down. It can be for your report or for your exams or whatever you have to make, anything, any activity that you need to do. But you have to be actively involved in what you do. To show that we are listening and interested, and provide a feedback to the speaker to that he or she knows the message was received. As a listener, this is your duty. For example, you are the speaker and there are a lot of listeners in front of you. If they don't respond to you positively or by nodding the head or answering your questions, you get bogged down. And that is therefore your duty, to buck up the speaker and to make the speaker feel that he or she is actually delivering a very important message. That is the very idea of academic listening. Moving further, there are some definitions of listening. The first is, listening is a process of receiving, interpreting, and reacting to messages received from the communication sender. Three words are important here. First, you receive, then you interpret, and then you react to it. Second definition, listening is a conscious, positive act requiring willpower. It is not a simple, passive exposure to sound. It is not merely getting the sounds, okay? That is hearing. That very concept becomes hearing as a concept. Here, you will have to be positively involved and extremely conscious of what is spoken to you. Moving further to the third definition on your screen, listening is an activity that can be turned on or off consciously and unconsciously both. Sometimes you don't listen even if you are conscious because you are somewhere else, and unconscious not comprehending things is also a part of the very idea of listening. It starts with the receiver becoming aware that they should listen and become attentive to what is being said. Okay, we as listeners shall be aware of what we are trying to do. Are we totally involved in what is told to us, or are we not involved in what is told to us? That gives you the very idea of academic listening. Fourth definition on your screen. The skills of listening has 4 components. This is very important, and this will allow you to understand listening in a holistic manner. First is clarification. Second is paraphrasing. Third is reflecting. Fourth is summarizing. First of all, you need to clarify your thoughts when you're listening. Second is you need to paraphrase what is told to you. Okay, summarize in a way. Third is reflecting, that is thinking upon. Now the third and the fourth part, that is reflecting and summarizing, are the very core of academic listening. First of all, you try to reflect upon an idea which is given to you by the speaker, and then you summarize the very idea. Moving further, here you have 2 points of academic listening. The first is listening during a speech is not enough. You have to remember what you have heard. Merely listening without remembering is of no use. When you listen to the lectures that are given to you by your teachers, okay, you have to remember what you listen to. If you don't remember what you listen to, then that listening is of no use. And second point here is you have to think over the communication received and sometimes note it down immediately. Okay, noting it down is also very important, because if you don't note down on a regular basis, you tend to forget what is told, and then reflecting back upon what is told to you maybe 4 days back or 5 days back becomes very difficult, and therefore note taking becomes a very important part of academic listening. When you move further, now there are 3 points here on academic listening. As you all know, it is an active process that has 3 basic steps. The first step is that of hearing. You should be able to hear to what is told to you, okay, and hear it in a productive manner. So the first step to listening is actually hearing. That is hearing. Second step, after you hear to the concept, you have to understand, okay. So the next part of listening happens when you take what you have heard and understand it in your own way. As I give you an example here, that the second strain of coronavirus is extremely deadly. Now you have to understand that. And when you understand that, you try to comprehend it in your own way. So where is it? That is in 4 states. So what do I need to do? If I've understood that in a proper way, I would not go to those states for the next 1 month, because I've understood that those areas are extremely dangerous for the people and it might affect your health or you might become corona positive. So that understanding is the second step of academic listening. Third is judging. Okay, now you have to judge, okay, that, okay, if there is coronavirus in 4 states of India, what do you have to judge? If it is in Maharashtra, for example, so Gujarat is very close by Maharashtra, so even Gujarat might face some problem in the near future. So by judging that, you would take precautionary measures even in your city and take care that you be very protective about yourself and your family. That is the third step of academic listening. Moving further, the basic difference between hearing and listening. As you know, all of us can hear, but all of us cannot listen. Okay, what we do most of the times in the classroom, when the classroom becomes boring, is we just hear to the person speaking to us. We are not involved. Hearing and listening are not the same thing. Hearing is involuntary. It is extremely involuntary, and listening involves the reception. Okay, hearing is you are allowed not to also. Whereas in listening, you have to. The concept of have to is very much the part of academic listening. And interpretation of what is heard is also equally important. It decodes the sound heard into meaning. The decoding process is not possible in listening. The decoding process is even more proper in academic listening and not at all called for in hearing. Moving further, Johnson defines listening as the ability to understand and respond to oral communication. Thus, we can state at the outset that hearing is not listening, okay? Because hearing does not involve two steps that we discussed earlier, that is understanding and judging. Listening requires more than hearing. It requires understanding of the communication received. Here you have 2 points. Hearing is with ears and listening is with the mind. That is the basic difference, okay? You hear, you might forget if you are only hearing. But then if you listen, it gets into your mind. And if it is extremely well told, and if you are extremely concentrative, it will be with you in your mind forever. As you can see here, listening is concerned with making a sense or meaning of what people hear. Hearing, on the other hand, is physical and listening is a mental process. Listening is using hearing in a better way. Hearing is extremely passive while listening is extremely active in nature. Friends, as you all know, listening skill requires the use of ears, brain, eyes to understand, but hearing only requires one thing, and that is having good ears. Hearing involves just receiving sound signals. That means, say for instance, you don't know a particular language. For example, I don't know French language. So, when I am trying to comprehend French language, as I don't know that language per se, what am I doing there? I am only hearing the very idea, because I have no idea what the speaker is saying. So those are only sound signals or the message in the ears. But listening involves conscious thought, which requires efforts on the part of the listeners. That means you have to be as involved as the speaker in the very process of academic listening. Moving further, listening is a process of making evaluation and judgment of thought, while hearing is only a simple reception of sound. On the other hand, ineffective listening causes from hearing only with ears, and effective listening causes from listening only with the mind. These are on your screen principles of good listening. You should remember all the 4. First is listen to everything very patiently. Okay. For instance, if any session is of 1 hour, say 60 minutes, don't try to judge the speaker just by the first 10 minutes of your listening that particular session. Be patient. Be patient till the very end. You never know, friends. The questions that arise at the end of 10 minutes might get answered at the end of 50 minutes. So be very patient with what you listen to. Second thing, understand speaker's feelings. Okay. Don't just listen to the words of what the speaker is trying to say. Feel every word that the speaker is trying to say. If you listen to any good storytelling on YouTube channels, you have a lot of YouTube channels. If you listen to good stories, if it is spoken by a very potent speaker, you have to get into that very zone of feeling every word. So that becomes important. Third is restatement and summary. Once you listen to what is told to you, okay, everything in total, then you try to summarize everything because you have comprehended, and therefore summarizing that becomes fairly easy. And there has to be, this is on the part of the speaker as well, ample time for healthy discussion on the topic that is taken up. Friends, most of the times what happens is at the end of the session, we don't get time to discuss. And therefore, there are many questions unanswered. So, every good session should end with ample time for discussion on that particular topic. Moving further, you have 5 important points. Those are related to the process of proper academic listening. The first is the sensing or selection stage. You try to select what you are listening to. Second is the interpreting stage. Third is the evaluating stage. Fourth is the responding stage. And fifth is the memory stage. So friends, you start by selecting a topic and you end by memorizing it. What you do in between is, once you select a topic, you interpret that. Then you evaluate that. Then you respond. That is, after decoding, you start encoding what you have listened to. And then what comes is memorizing it. If any one of these steps break down, the listening process becomes less effective or even fails entirely. Okay? The first point here, basic listening modes. First is competitive or combative listening. Now friends, as you know, okay, most of the times what happens is when we are more interested in promoting our own point of view, when we are listening to people, most of the times we want to speak at the same time. Okay, because we start feeling that your point of view is more important than the point of view of the person who is speaking on the other side. Then, in understanding or exploring someone else's view becomes very difficult because you are trying to compete. Competing while listening is not done. It is not good. It is a big no-no. Because then you tend to close your mind because your mind is preoccupied with your own thoughts. Second point is passive or attentive listening. This is a very good stage or a very good mode of listening. Okay, in this, we are genuinely interested in listening and understanding the other person's point of view. You are all at ease, all ears, all with an open mind to allow the ideas to flow in, okay, rather than blocking your mind and trying to combat. So this is a very good mode of listening. Third is active or reflective listening. The best stage of or the best mode of listening is active or reflective listening. It is the single most useful and perhaps the most important listening skill. We restate or paraphrase our understanding of their message and reflect it back to the sender for verification. So the very process of encoding and decoding here is done when you are into active or reflective listening. This verification or feedback process is what distinguishes active listening and makes it a very effective mode of communication. Here, there are approaches on your screen. 3 approaches to listening, 3 basic approaches to listening. The first one is passive listening. Second one is questioning. Third one is paraphrasing. Okay, first you listen to what is told to you. Okay, absorb it, then you question, and then you paraphrase. Moving further, now these are types of listening. Okay, the first type of listening is marginal listening. That means you are listening to the entire idea in a very marginal way, not totally. Second is evaluative listening. That means you are evaluating what is told to you, that is good. That is a good sign, but don't evaluate midway. Third is projective listening. Fourth is passive listening. Fifth is fake listening. This happens in a lot of classrooms. You are just sitting in front of your teacher and you are not at all listening to the teacher. You are sitting as if you are listening, but in actuality, you are in some other world. So that is fake listening. And the last one and the most important one is active listening. Here on your screen, you have a chart drawn. Okay, that is, which are the basic criteria involved in active listening. The first is pay attention to what is said. Be properly and be totally attentive about what is told to you. Second is look at who is talking. Don't look here and there. Don't beat around the bush physically as well. Just concentrate and look at the person who is talking to you. That will give that person a lot of confidence, and that will make sure that the speaker knows that you are very much interested in listening. Third is do not talk while listening. Okay? Never talk when you're listening. Be totally involved. Fourth is ask questions, but once the session entirely is over, then follow directions given to you by a speaker, and then visualize. Friends, this is the most important part of active listening. Try to visualize the entire scene that is set up in front of you by the speaker. Imagine that. Once you start imagining that, of course, the speaker also has to be equally good in order to make you imagine things. But if the speaker is that good, make sure you visualize everything that is told to you. Here, you have 7 basic points of active listening skills. The first point is being attentive, paying proper attention. Second, asking open-ended questions, not yes or no questions, open-ended. Allow proper time to explore your question and answer accordingly. Okay, that is related to the speaker. Third is you have to ask questions which are very important. Don't ask questions which are not probing. Okay, the question should be very impactful. Then you should request clarification, proper clarification of what is told. For example, if there is a session of 1 hour on any particular topic, then if there are questions, you should seek proper clarification. Next is paraphrase the whole idea of what is told to you. Then be attuned to and reflect feelings. Feelings are reflected non-verbally as well. For example, you're listening to any particular session. Say yes by nodding your head, by smiling on the things that you need to smile, by focusing, by thinking, by being very actively non-verbally or paralinguistically involved in what is told to you. And then you should summarize. Now here you have traits of an active academic listener. Okay. Now these are the points which are very important when you wish to be an active listener. Friends, these are certain traits of active academic listening. The first point here is do not finish the sentence of others. Let the person who is speaking finish the sentence first. Do not try to finish it from your own half. That is not good. That is not what a good academic listener does. Second point is a good listener does not answer questions with questions. Okay? Answer questions with answers. Don't question on any question. Okay? Avoid that as much as possible. Then you should be aware of biases and objective. You have to be very bias free and be very objective about what you are listening to or whom you are listening to. Then you should not be preoccupied with his or her own thoughts. Okay? You as a person should never be preoccupied with your own thoughts. Then allow others to talk as well. Don't just speak. Listening is good. Please, I assure you, if you listen, you learn a lot. Okay? Because listening is actually the most important skill. Then do not intend to dominate any conversation. Never allow any debate to turn into an argument which is extremely unhealthy. Allow conversation to be very healthy. Then plan responses after other person has finished speaking, not while they are speaking. Don't start thinking about what you're going to ask or what you're going to say before the session is over, because that would block your mind. That is not good. Provide feedback, but do not interrupt in between. Feedback is very important, but not in between. Okay, feedback is perhaps the most important thing, but feedback should always be at the very end of any particular session. Analysis by looking at all the relevant factors and asking open-ended questions. Analyze everything very pragmatically, very holistically. So these are certain traits of good, active, academic listener. Moving further, here you have advantages of academic listening. First is you try to, when you listen to any particular thing, okay, that allows you a greater ability to communicate. Second thing is the second language acquisition becomes extremely faster. As I told you at the very start as well, listening is the only way of acquiring language. No other skill is as important as listening skill. Third point, lower levels of frustration, anxiety, and depression. Because you have listened to and you have comprehended everything, you are not frustrated that you have not understood anything. You are not anxious because you have not understood anything, and you don't get depressed as well. It improves your relationship skills, because when you listen to people, they tend to start respecting you more. Okay, listening is perhaps the most neglected thing in this modern century. People have no time to listen to anybody because we are so busy with making our points of view that we seldomly look into the other person's point of view. So that is very important. Next is stronger sense of empathy. Next, help understanding the concept better and holistically. If you listen properly, it allows you to understand the concept in an entirety, in a very better way. And the last, but perhaps the most important thing is, it allows you to think critically, on which we would be coming later on in the next slides. Importance of critical listening and critical thinking. On your screen, you have barriers to academic listening. The first barrier is lack of interest. If you're not interested, listening would not take place. Second is impatience. You should have extreme amount of patience because listening requires a lot of it. Third is avoiding the effort to understand what is difficult. We tend to lose hope very easily, friends. Okay, because we don't understand certain thing, we don't try, we just give it up. Okay, it is not possible. So that is a basic barrier to academic listening. Fourth is tendency to criticize. You must have come across many people who always criticize others. Now such people will never be good listeners because they always try to find fault with others. Other barriers are psychological and split attention barriers. You might be facing some problem at your home, or some problem in your relationship, or some problem in your life which is very general. Then you will not be able to listen. There is no motivation. That means the lack of motivation to listen to anything. See, We always listen to things that are important to us. Okay. We are always attentive about the things that gives us any productive output. So if what you are listening to does not give you productive output, that is of no use. Then wandering mind, you are not in the classroom mentally at all, then that is a problem. And distraction, you are distracted within that particular area, the setting is not good, the infrastructure is not up to the mark, then that is a basic barrier to academic listening or listening in general as well. Planning to respond while listening, this is not good. Don't plan before you listen to everything entirely. Self-evaluation is also a big no-no. You should not evaluate yourself while listening to others. More thinking than listening, that means overthinking is also not good while you are listening. Poor perception. Your perception is not up to the mark. That is also a barrier. Noise from outside is also a barrier to listening. Poor health, physical health is also a problem in good academic listening. Looking through your lens, this is not good. This is very important as well. You wear your binoculars to understand everything. That is bad. Be open-minded when you are listening. Try to accept everything that comes to you and then scrutinize it later on, not scrutinizing it while listening, okay, while the process of listening is going on. And then getting into a debate and comparison. This is also very bad. Never enter any debate without listening to everything in entirety. That is not good. That is not what a good listener does. A good listener is always very receptive. If you are not receptive, then it is of no use. Friends, this is one of the major faults in listening. One of the research shows that our listening efficiency is no better than 25 to 30%. Okay, what does that mean? That means the considerable information is lost in the listening process. So you only tend to get back with you only 30% of what you have listened to, and that is why note taking becomes very important. Okay, note taking is a very important aspect of good academic active listening. These are certain common faults in listening. Okay, first is prejudice, not good. Second, advising the speaker, again not good. You should not advise the speaker while that speaker is speaking. Advise that person after the session is over. Being a sparring person is not good. You think that you are right is also not good. The perspective of other person is also equally and sometimes more important and more potent. Then derailing the very process of good listening, you try to get the entire conversation into something else, not good. Dreaming while listening is also not good. Thinking speed. Some listeners tend to think very much ahead, and that becomes a barrier. Premature evaluation. If the session is of 90 minutes, you start evaluating the session at the end of 30 minutes. Not good. Semantic stereotypes. Okay, this is also not good because certain speakers have a particular tendency of speaking. For example, a speaker might say the word okay every 2 minutes. So that is being stereotyped. That is also not good. Don't focus on that. Then delivery is also a fault in terms of listening. That is the fault from the speaker's side. If the delivery is not up to mark, then listening does not happen at all. And other external distractions. Now friends, how to improve academic listening? These were certain barriers to academic listening. Now what do we do to improve academic listening? The first thing is maintaining eye contact with the instructor. Make sure you're looking into the eyes of the person who is speaking. That is how you listen to people. Second thing, focus on content more, delivery less. Now this is a tricky one, friends, because what happens is delivery is also very important. How a particular message is delivered is very important. But you, as an active academic listener, should focus more on the very content that is presented to you. You might think that the delivery is not good, but if the content is good, you should focus on the content. Avoid emotional involvement if possible. Don't get involved emotionally into what is said in totally naturally. You should feel what is said, but don't get over emotional what is said to you. Avoid distraction. Treat listening as a challenging mental task. Take it up as a challenge and you'll come out winning. Realize that listening requires a lot of involvement, a lot of mental involvement is required. Third point, be prepared to listen to everything that is thrown to you and have a very good positive attitude while listening. Furthermore, listen to understand and not to refute. Extremely important, this one. Okay. Don't listen to disagree. Listen to agree first, and then later on, if you find something worth disagreeing, later on do that. Don't do that in between the very process of listening. Keep an open mind. Concentrate on the very context of listening. Keep a lid on your thought speed. Don't think too much or too fast. Combine verbal delivery and non-verbal cues. You should listen to the person who is speaking non-verbally as well, not only verbally. Show some empathy. Be patient and listen critically and delay your judgment. I'm not telling you not to pass judgment, but delay it till the very end. Don't do it prematurely. Friends, on your screen are guidelines to effective academic listening. Very important. First, maintaining eye contact. Second, bodily exhibition. Your very posture should show that you are involved in listening. Third, ask questions once the session is over. Fourth, do not overtake. Be fine. Wait for your turn. Fifth, put the speaker at ease. Sixth, avoid premature arguments. Next is stay very objective, staying unbiased. Next, removing every distractions, respect pauses and silence. This is often neglected. Respect if there is a pause somewhere, wait for it. Okay, don't start doing something or don't get very jittery when there is a pause or there is silence around. Wait for it. Listen between the lines. Very important. Listening to what is not said is the hallmark of good academic listener. Listen in totality. Avoid, fake attention. If you're not into it, if you're not involved, then there is no point listening. Then that listening becomes hearing. And have no personal biases. Here on your screen are 10 commandments of good listening. Remember all these and you will be an excellent academic listener. First, stop talking while somebody is speaking. Second, make the speaker feel important. Third, express your curiosity that you want to listen to that particular topic. Fourth, remove distraction if there are any. Fifth, empathize. Sixth, be patient. Seventh, very important, hold your temper. Don't get angry on things. For example, I'll give you a very potent example here. Okay, if the speaker is talking on something that is of your extreme dislike, say something very religious is being said and you are not liking it, don't get angry. Wait for the entire session to get over and then turn that session into a very healthy discussion session. Don't try and shout or get angry on the speaker. Hold your thoughts. Eighth is go easy on argument and criticism. Ninth, ask questions at the very end, not in between. And 10th, be positive in the listening activity. The entire activity should be done in a very positive manner. These are certain do's and don'ts of academic listening. First of all, we'll go through the do's of it. Be mentally prepared to listen to everything. You should be totally there, totally involved. Evaluate the speech, not the speaker. Speech becomes important. If you have a problem with that person personally, leave it aside. Listen to what is being said to you. Be unbiased totally. Fight distractions by closing off sound sources. Okay, don't get distracted by anything around you. Be open-minded. Ask questions to clarify and not to argue. Whenever you ask any question, that should be for clarification purpose and not for argument purpose. Paraphrase everything from time to time. Send appropriate non-verbal cues so that the speaker feels that you are listening. These are the do's. On the other side, you have the don'ts. Don't pay undue emphasis to vocabulary, as you can use the context to understand the meaning. Don't be very, don't try to find faults in the vocabulary of the person who is speaking. Focus on the context of it. Don't pay too much attention to accessories and clothing of the speaker. That is not important. What is important is what that person is speaking. Of course, dressing becomes important, but that should not be the most important thing. Don't prepare your responses while the speaker is speaking. Avoid preconceptions and prejudices. Don't get distracted by outside influences. Concentrate very hard on everything. You should not do something, or you should not distract yourself from what is being said. Okay? Don't interrupt too often, and don't show boredom even to an uninteresting speaker. This is, friends, very important. You should not show that you are not enjoying the very process of listening. Now, this is the very core of academic listening. Till now, we understood certain commandments of listening, what is active listening, what are the barriers to it, what are the traits of good academic listening, and what you should do when you are an active listener. Now, the subpoint of academic listening is critical listening. What is it? Critical listening involves analyzing and evaluating the accuracy, legitimacy, and value of message, and part of the more general process of critical evaluation of everything in life. Okay? You analyze and evaluate when you are critically listening to something. Now here, being critical does not necessarily mean being negative or finding fault with the message. Critical is not negative. Critical is being objective. Okay? Students often see the term critical and initially believe that critical listening entails disagreement or disapproval, but that is not the case. That is a very narrow understanding of the word critical. However, critical listening can just as easily result in positive evaluation of message. Now, we shall quickly go through the elements of critical listening. First is evaluation of plausibility of the message. Okay, friends, as you know, some of the messages seem legitimate and valid whenever you first listen to anything. When you first listen to something, that seems to be okay. This is going on. This is very nice. But when encountering other messages, you immediately get the feeling that something is not right. Even if you cannot immediately pinpoint with these messages, you feel as if something is amiss. If you start feeling that something is a problem there, okay? When you experience these feelings, you are evaluating the plausibility of the messages or the extent to which it seems legitimate. I'll give you an example for the evaluation of plausibility. Say, for instance, you listen to a message that there is a lot of rain. It is raining cats and dogs in the city where there is seldom rain. Okay. So first of all, you start listening to it very patiently, but then start realizing that, oh, Does it really rain there this heavily? Then you start seeing to the very message that, okay, is this correct or is this not correct? Is it legitimate? Is it plausible or is it not? Next is evaluation of the source. That means who is giving you that message, because it becomes very important. The status of the source is very important. Okay, it will impact to the extent to which you critically engage into a message. People tend to be more critical of messages from individual of equal status. Say for example, if a person of my status gives me any message with regard to research methodology, I would be not sure that whether that person is right or not. I'll cross check. But if the same message is given to me by a very senior person in my academic field, I would be happy to listen to that person, and therefore the very status of the source becomes very important. Third is evaluation of the consistency of the message. Friends, consistency concerns whether the message is free of internal contradiction and in harmony with the information you already know is true. As I told you, as I gave you example, okay, that 4 states in the nation of India are passing through very dangerous second strain of coronavirus. Okay, now this is what I told you today. Now if I tell you tomorrow that there is no problem in our country with regard to coronavirus, everything is fine, so this is a contradictory statement given by me on the same topic. That is how you critically listen and evaluate the consistency of any particular message. And evaluation of evidence. As a critical listener, my friends, you must also evaluate the evidence by considering 2 criteria that are visible on your screen. The first is verifiability of the message. You should verify whether that message is true or not. And second, the quality of the message, whether that message deserves the attention that you are giving to it. Friends, this was all about the topic of academic listening. In this topic, we started with what is listening, what is the difference between listening and hearing, then moved to what is academic listening, then traits of good academic listener, commandments of a good academic listener, barriers to good academic listening, certain do's and don'ts, and then we switched over to what is critical listening. I am pretty sure if you follow this session in its totality, you will be able to easily understand what is academic listening. Thank you. Namaskar.